Alright, I'm finally done cutting all these holes. That's just these holes though. Between these real long uprights and all these cross members down here, I cut a grand total of probably 960 to 980 holes, somewhere in there, so close to 1,000 holes. However, now I gotta start grabbing this plate and fabricating some brackets so I can bolt this stuff together. Alright, so I think this might be the most efficient way to cut the metal. This is a 1 foot by 1 foot square, or 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter, and I need 20 by 7.5. The idea being that I can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 end pieces for the brackets, and then as far as the lateral reinforcements, I can at least get 2 here, these little 45s. But basically the upright, which is 3 by 3, would fit right in the middle, and I'd have a hole punched here and a hole punched here, and basically these lateral reinforcements would bridge across here, and then this with the bracket on the end would attach to those uprights over there, just bolt right in place. I was sitting here wondering the best way to accurately cut all this sheet metal or this plate steel, and I'm like, oh man, what's the best way to make sure it's straight and to get it right and to do it, you know, without taking too long and and I had totally forgot that I fixed my plasma cutter. This will make a cake job out of it. Just should be done in no time. And it takes that slag right off. Ends up with a nice clean edge that you were wanting the whole time. So all you gotta do is use your plasma cutter, cut out whatever shape you want, and use a descaler, knock that slag off, and you get that nice clean edge you were looking for. And these plates that I cut yesterday. Alright, basically I'm just tacking these first parts of the bracket in place. This is the flat part. I'm tacking it in place, and now that I have the holes, and then once that's all squared up and then fitted to make sure it fits properly, I'm going to add the lateral supports across here and basically just beef it up and clean it up, and then I'll do the test fit, final test fit on the rack. But got these 3 so far. This one's will be the 4th, and these are actually the cross members for between the middle upright and the back upright for the plate storage area. Alright, this is the basic bracket setup. I've got 4 of these made. These are the short cross members that go between the central upright and the rear upright. The central upright is where the J hooks are used whenever you want to have a full safety system inside the middle and the front upright. And the rear upright is where you use for plate storage. So these don't have to be as long. Now I'm going to do this exact same type of bracket setup for the longer cross members that go between the middle and the front as well. And then this is a standalone cross member. This separates the left side of the squat rack from the right side of the squat rack and keeps it from swaying back and forth. And because of that, because you can't put one on the bottom or else it'd interfere with your feet and you wouldn't be able to walk through the rack, this top one has to be able to function as a lateral support and stabilizer by itself. So because of that, I wanted to separate the bolts as much as possible and really get a good wide stance on its ability so it can really keep those uprights as straight and rigid as possible. So for that, I wanted to be able to put this cross member as high as possible. So I cut a section out of here, as you can see right there, and you actually reach in to this hole right here. You reach in through the top of the tube and then bolt this in place. And then all the way down here at the bottom, 8 inches lower, there's the secondary bolt. And then of course with this real big 45 lateral support on there. So by having these twin, see, one on each side, these twin oversized lateral supports, along with separating these mounting bolts by 8 inches, I'm hoping that will be sufficient in making these uprights and the left-right side of the rack as rigid as possible. Alright, well, so far so good. I've got these middle uprights laid back. I've got that center cross member that separates the left side of the rack from the right side of the rack, and everything bolted right up. Like, not even off by a little bit. It lined up perfectly. That was probably the smoothest test fit I've ever had in my life, but I should probably stop talking now before something goes terribly wrong. Alright, this is it so far. So these are the middle uprights. This is where the main J-cups usually hang, facing this way so you can load the bar. The front uprights will be way back here with a lot more space, and that's where you usually have squat and everything else. And these are the rear uprights. This is where you typically hang the weight for storage and things like that. But I made sure to replicate everything that'll be up here is also replicated back here. So if you wanted, you could keep the plate storage somewhere else and actually use this as a secondary workout area if you wanted to. Oh, I forgot that before I can paint this stuff, I actually have to weld the feet onto the end of these uprights so they can be bolted to the floor. But that should be quick. I just gotta cut out the feet, drill the holes, and then tack them in place, and it should be done. Alright, so I've got the front welded straight across with the sides tacked in place. I'll actually set this down and show you here. So across the front all the way through here, but then the sides are just tacked in place. If I flip it over here, you can actually see it's clear across the back and the front, but the sides tacked in because there's really no reason to completely cap off the sides, and doing this to 6 different uprights would just be a lot of extra time and heat on the metal that's really not necessary. This keeps it exactly where it needs to be, looks good, easy to do, so I'd say that's job well done. Alright, I got all this disassembled into a few main sections, and I'm going to clean it. I'm going to sand it up, make sure all the slag, all the little bits and pieces of debris are off. Then I'm going to go through some degreaser and clean it up. And then once it's been degreased and cleaned, I'm going to start painting. I'm going with a real heavy duty epoxy enamel, the same like they would use on construction equipment. It won't last forever, it'll chip and scuff. I mean, paint always does, it's kind of the inherent part of paint, but it should be tougher than about anything else I could do for it. Alright, we got the third section of uprights on, the front section. Took a couple days out of here, I was busy with other stuff, but getting close to done with this rack now. The rack itself is assembled, the rack itself is done. Right now I'm working on the accessories and things like that. So these are going to be the basically the weight tree. These are going to bolt into the sides and stick out. I'll actually show you here. See, I've got these long ones for the heavier weights at the bottom. I got these small ones for the change plates near the top. Basically, these are all 1/4" steel, so thick and heavy duty. But it's got one hole in there, and then you can just bolt it to these ones on the side and kind of place it wherever you want, space it out however you want. Technically, you can also put it on any upright you want. There's nothing proprietary about the way these are built. They're kind of universal in where they can go. I've also been working on these J-cups. So pretty basic, you know, 3" by 1/4" steel plate. Got that pin in there. It's just like any J-cut, nothing special. Hatching pair. I've got this this 45 reinforcement there at the bottom, just trying to make it as stout as possible. I probably quadruple welded. I'd weld once, and then I'd go through and weld each side of that weld, and then I'd do a real wide weld that tied all 3 of those together. So hopefully hopefully the metal itself would bend before the weld would ever start to give. That's the goal anyway. All right, my J-cups are in place. They seem to fit all right. I've also got these weight trees in place. Seems good.